So many people these days are looking to place capital into real estate, right? I mean, it's the talk of the town. I mean, even on the tech side, some people want to allocate some of their tech money to real estate, and it's everywhere. So, for all the listeners, I mean, you go out in this world, there's a lot of noise, right, through the internet, and so in vetting the multiple different type of syndicators that are out there, and or going to real estate crowdfunding platforms, how do the LPs or the investors get comfortable with the actual underwriting projections and everything that the GPs present to them, and know that, and that them not knowing how to underwrite themselves, know that it's a good deal beyond knowing who the manager is?
I love your question. And it's an incredibly loaded question
Yeah.
because, you know, for the most part, it depends. And additionally, my advice that I'm going to give is not for everybody. That's the biggest problem, is that the advice that I want to give you is it's going to be for some people, but others aren't going to do it. Others aren't going to think that it makes sense and all that kind of stuff. So I do have, by the way, a PDF that I have created on vetting, and it just talks about all the things that the main things that you need to focus on for the deal, the market, and the team. It doesn't just give you questions to ask. It really just teaches you how to do it. So it's called vetting, and you can text it, the word vetting to, I think, 55444. But just to throw that out there first, in case the listener really wants to dive a little bit more deeply into this. But here's some advice. The first step, if you want to become a passive investor, I'm going to ask you to get educated. And most operators, most syndicators are going to cringe when I say you need to get educated. They're like, stop telling my people that they can't invest with me until they go over here and spend $40,000 on their education. You're holding them back. You're making them think that this is risky. You're doing all this stuff. And so stop saying this. So Joe, you could possibly be mad at me. Who knows? But I'm going to say that the first step is education, and with a caveat to say that if you are listening and you want to be into this, there's a few ways to get educated. You can start reading books. And I wish I was an affiliate for this book, because I share it all over the place, because I love Joe Farrell. He's a good guy. And he wrote a book called Best Ever Apartment Syndication Book. And that that book, it has a lot about raising money. But if you just skip to the part where it's just talking about underwriting deals, and where it's talking about managing the deals, and it's talking about how to be a passive investor, those three chapters in his book are going to help you, because I want you, as a passive investor, I want you to completely understand how to underwrite a deal. And I know that it sounds like a lot of work, but I'm just saying that there's a lot of people out there that are syndicating deals right now, and a lot of them are brand new, and a lot of them don't know. I don't know a good analogy that doesn't have a cuss word in it, but a lot of them, you know, don't understand what they're doing in at all. And so you're likely to lose money if you go with somebody who doesn't have a track record. So anyway, I want you to get educated so you can at least see these things in their underwriting, so you can at least ask them the right questions with how they found the deal, what they're going to do with the deal, so you can at least understand the difference between raising rents by 20% the first day that you own something versus, you know, what can actually happen in a business plan. So I just want them to get educated. The second thing that I would like them to do is start to uh, ask around. So step two for a passive investor is to start calling Joe Robert up, call up Adam Adams, and say, Adam, who do you invest with? Like, who out there do you trust? You made it sound really scary on there, and so who do you trust? And that's where you start. You start asking people in the business who they trust. And if they can give you one or two people, you go to those people. And for a minute, all you're doing is asking them who they trust also. So you go and ask, all you're doing is getting credible people to give you more credible people. And you're taking notes, you're getting used to all this. Once you've done that, I want you to make sure that you figure out what markets you're open to, and you'll need to start underwriting markets. You want some good fundamentals. I want to give you, these are in the PDF that you can have for free. These are all in the PDF as well, but I'll share a couple with you now. One example is the market needs to be growing 1% year over year at least. And by the way, it's not an average 1% year over year, because if it didn't grow last year or the year before, but this year it all of a sudden grew 3%, that's not necessarily good. And same thing if it grew 3% and then went stagnant for a couple of years. I want consistent growth where it doesn't just average 1%, it's 1% each year on population growth. The next thing about population, by the way, is that you want to have it to be at, for me, my team, we don't look at any MSAs, they're called. We don't look at an MSA unless it has at least 1 million people that live in the geographical area. For example, DFW, uh, Dallas might not have, well, it does, but Dallas might not have 1 million. But if with Fort Worth and Plano on top of it, now it has 1 million, boom, that counts because they're all in the same MSA. They're not the same city, but they're all in the same MSA. Now I know that Dallas is enough on its own,
Mhm.
but I just want the passive investor who's thinking about getting in to just have at least a minimum threshold of 100,000. There's a lot of operators, or I guess brand new operators out there, or some of them have been operating, but they're just going to these terrible, like small podunk areas that don't have any metrics. And you're going to lose a lot of money doing that. And all they're doing is what I kind of did in the beginning with my 8 cap. I was chasing these 8 caps, and I had to go to crappy areas to find an 8 cap in these days, right? If you want to be in a good area, the cap rates are generally lower. And so stop chasing cap rates. And you've got all these new operators. There's so much competition. And so we see people going to areas that have 2,000 people, 6,000 people, 10,000, 20,000 people, 30,000 people. And these markets are just too small to sustain anything. One little tweak happens and it could become a ghost town. So I just want to make sure that the listener at least puts a minimum of 100,000 MSA. Me personally, I put a minimum of 1 million. A couple other takeaways: you want job growth to be growing 2% year over year. So population is 1% year over year, job growth are 2% year over year. And again, it's not an average. It's you want to see that it's consistent. You want job diversification. You want to make sure this is an interesting one. It's also in the PDF, but it's very interesting because most people don't even think about it. But I want rents to be cheaper in that area than it is to buy. And the reason why is because if it's cheaper to live at a house than it is to and own your own house than it is to rent a unit, then people are not going to be renting units. They're going to be owning houses. And so you're going to get a massive amount of turnover. They're going to be there just as long as they can to save that down payment so that they can go to the cheaper option. But if renting is the cheapest option, that means that you're in a really solid market where you're going to have the ability to keep the same people in for a long time. Another one, and I'll stop because I get so passionate about this.
Yeah.
But another one is just unit mix and unit count. Like what we're looking at is how many beds, how many baths, and additionally, when we buy properties, for the most part, there's a mix of units. So there are some properties where it's all 2 bed, 1 bath. There's some that it's all 1-1. There's some where it's all 3-2 or 3-3. But most apartments that I've seen, there's a unit mix. And so a portion of them will be 1 bedrooms, a portion will be 2, and a portion will be 3. And I personally prefer having a good unit mix where you have a little bit of everything. And I want the fewest amount of 1 bedroom, 1 bath, depending on the market that I'm in. If I'm in a market where it's mostly students, it might make sense to have a 1 bedroom. But what really I'm wanting to look for is places where a family comes, because what happens when the family lives there is they have more stuff and it's more stressful for them to move. And so with a one bedroom, they can just up and leave and there's a lot of churn. But with a two bedroom and a three bedroom in a place where the population can support families, you're more likely to get families in there. The families are going to be more stressed out to try to move, so they're going to be more willing to stay for a long time. And so, yeah, basically, want to say without answering the entire question, unit count, unit mix makes a big difference. So you want to look at you look at uh, the the demographics of the area, see who you need to serve, and you just need to make sure that your property serves that person at a whole. But in general, the more unit, no, the more bedrooms and bathrooms, the longer period of time somebody will stay.
And the reality of all that is that there's a lot of LPs will not go to any extent to do the due diligence on all that whatsoever. And probably the best way for them would to really look at friends that have invested maybe with that syndicate for a period of time and has that type of track record, right?
Yeah, 100%.